So essentially, this is the same problem with the Hondas. So it's like literally, it sounds like they're shaking the batteries, and the battery's like, no, I don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, they're obviously complex machines, but
yeah.
This year, the rule change is largely about the power units, but also like the cars are smaller, tires are narrower, there's less downforce, there's active aero, there's all sorts of stuff. But previously was only like, I think like 20% or 30% of the power came from the battery.
Uh-huh.
Now it's half.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Welcome to I Like Batteries, the show where we explore the world of batteries. I'm Jeff Lynch.
And I'm Mike Muldoon. Good morning, Jeff Lynch.
We're back to mornings. I love mornings.
I've got a little bit more time in the mornings than I used to, but we'll get into that later in the show.
We will. We'll touch on that perhaps.
Yeah, exactly.
In a moment.
Exactly. Yeah, getting batteries recharged, as they say, literally with things. But those would be smaller batteries. But there's some bigger batteries in a sports category that you tend to be a pretty big fan of. Yes,
and this is all. So we are recording on Tuesday morning, the 6th of March, and the Australian Grand Prix started. The F1's 2026 F1 season. Last night, our time here on the East Coast, but it's certainly the next morning in Australia, and brand new cars this year, new rules, and the big change, or one of the bigger changes, is the half of the power. And these are 1,000 horsepower vehicles. Half of the power comes from a 1.6 liter V6 engine, turbocharged, of course, and the other half comes from batteries. The big change here is that last year, and for the previous 8-10 years, the ratio was different. So it was only about 20 to 30% was from the battery. And in those older cars, there was additional mechanisms to help regen energy into those batteries. So when you're watching an F1 car and you see the little lights flashing on the back of the car, it's not brake lights because you're going too fast for those to be effective. It's when the battery is harvesting energy. So there could be a slowdown of the vehicle a bit compared to, a car from behind just needs to know that. So this year, there's all sorts of changes in driving styles to keep the batteries topped up. So it's quite interesting. But the reason we mention this is one team in particular, Aston Martin, changed engine suppliers to Honda this year. And Honda's new engine for the Aston Martin car is having troubles, Mike.
Yeah, I heard about these troubles. You kind of talked to me about it, and battery. I guess I'd summarize this, and you can go into more details. Like, batteries don't like to be shaken. How's that? Does that sound fair?
Or stirred.
Or shaken or stirred. Yes. We may have just figured the title for this episode. Sure, absolutely. Yeah, but go into that a little bit more depth.
So they've had trouble. Aston Martin has had trouble with their battery units, and they've just been not supplying the amount of power they need. And it's basically been attributed so far to the fact that the engine and the chassis combination is shaking the car and therefore shaking the batteries and causing the batteries to not keep their charge in some way or another. I don't think they've really discovered exactly what's happened here. And fresh off the news this morning, there is some indication that maybe there is a problem with their battery management system as well. So all of these things combined have put Aston Martin on the back foot. And this is all coming out of what they call free practice 1. There are 3 free practice sessions on a normal F1 weekend. The first 2 practice sessions happen on Friday. The third session and qualifying happens on Saturday, and the race typically on Sunday. There's other formats, but that's the primary one.
Got it. Yeah.
Each of those sessions is an hour, and they're very, F1 is very strictly regulated as far as what you can do, how much time you can spend doing X, Y, or Z. But they use these practice sessions to set the car up for the race for that weekend.
Sure.
Tracks are different, etc. So Fernando Alonso's car had no running at all in FP1, and Lance Stroll did 3 laps and none at speed.
Wow, that's not good.
And they only had 2 batteries left, and they have 2 cars. So the batteries that are in the cars right now need to get them through the weekend.
The whole weekend, right?
They
yeah,
will
I mean,
likely not.
Yeah.
And these teams actually have contractual obligations to run in a race.
Really?
So it is likely that at least one car will hopefully make it through qualifying, like set a lap time, probably start last, probably do 3 or 4 laps and retire to meet their obligation to F1. But
because then they've at least they showed up. So
they showed up. They were on the grid. So if you're not on the grid, that's bad.
You can be a you can be a DNF, do not finish, but you don't want to be a DNS, which is do not start.
Correct.
Plus I think something else that we kind of, I think the article put on, it's also shaking the driver.
Yes, there was some concern about the safety for Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso's health. As a result of this vibration problem. Right.
Which is probably a great segue to why I want to talk a little bit about batteries in healthcare. Now, I think a lot of our listeners know that clearly I've been a PT and then have this as well. But Jeff was nice enough to stop into Mass General Hospital last Saturday to say hi to me because I was there for a little bit of a stay, which is nice that it was only a short stay. But I actually underwent open heart surgery last Wednesday, so maybe different depending on when this recording gets released. But so a real quick thing, don't have to go into it much. I had a congenital defect in my heart for a prolonged period of time, and it had gotten worse, and it was time to be able to go ahead and take care of it, which the great teams there took care of it well, took care of me well. But clearly my battery brain was going, which is good. It was good cognitive, good cognitive recognition. And I saw all the things, Jeff, around that were battery powered, from when I'd go for a walk with my 6-lead EKG on, that was like the portable one in terms of like, how do you power that? What's that? Workstations that are out there, all these other things that there's so many batteries in the healthcare environment. One of them that you think about, because there were kind of a little bit of storms while I was there, no major big ones, which was nice. But we've been
the one right before.
The big one right before. That was I only snowblowed at that one. There was a lot of manual things. There was no lifting of any type of heavy things, which is protecting some certain things. But power outages, right? And that can be a problem. And there were a lot. I mean, if you think about it, that major storm, I think Providence, Rhode Island got more snow than they got in the blizzard of 78, I believe was one of the statistics, like 37 inches or something. So, I mean, they have hospitals down there. There's a lot of hospitals out there. And so, therefore, power went out down on Cape Cod and things. And hospitals need to keep the energy going for multiple reasons. So, they rely on some generators and whatnot. But, the other thing, Jeff, see if you can guess this, what else they are kind of looking at using as a potential way to be able to help maintain some power when the grid goes down. What would it be? Do you have a guess?
Let me think. What's the name of the show again? Yes, we're talking about fixed battery energy storage systems.
Yeah, or your BESS, right? So your battery energy storage systems. So what happens with this is a lot of the hospitals really, they have this ability, and in major times, they have a really large generator. And I know this because I've worked in a hospital, is certain plugs are certain colors, right? So what happens is generally the red plugs that are in a hospital are the ones that are on generator. So sometimes if you had things that were plugged in, you'd move that from one plug to the other. And so sometimes it's a manual process.
That makes sense, yeah.
I know they're trying to get better about the fact that you don't have to think about that, because in times that requires a human being to look over, recognize that patient's plugged into something. And sometimes the reality is, what's not plugged in? Well, the patient's bed. Okay. Well, no big deal. We can switch that over, right? I mean, it's not such a big deal that if you're in a certain position, we have to move it. But when we look at this, obviously there's different risk thresholds in there. But this article that came out by, what do we call this? Hoko News, be some type of healthcare website, stated that the reality is that within the healthcare sector, hospitals use nearly 10% of all commercial building energy while occupying only 4% of the space. Energy costs are $8 billion. Well, they're saying by 2030, this could be 100 times up. So what do you need to be able to do? Well, having a BESS as part of your system could be important. So they scale easy, which is why U.S. storage capacity grew 66% in 2024, adding 10.4 gigawatts, with nearly double expected in 2025. So the interesting thing, this article, and I want to get your perspective on this, it said lead-based solutions remain a strong choice for certain applications thanks to their proven reliability, recyclability, and robust domestic supply chain. So that was interesting to me, given what we know about batteries. Now, maybe that's because, like, think of it, and so let's think about this together, is that in a snowstorm like we had, and so let's pick Providence, Rhode Island, the hospitals that are down there, and Providence Children's Hospital is one that comes to mind, is that, you're not going to be able to recharge if it's super cold. And we were super cold during that. So it's like, if you have some solar, or you have, like, you're trying to play like an F1 system where it's like, okay, we'll have the generator recharge the battery, and it's below 32 degrees and it's lithium. Guess what's not going to happen?
It's not going to charge as well or at all.
Right. So I think that might be the reason. But so they're just little things I was like, huh. This said, one recent example, Applied Medical in California chose Vanadium Redox Flow Battery system from CellCube to power a microgrid, helping ensure that critical medical equipment operations kept producing even during failures. So this is we learn every week. We have different things that we get. I think it's the first time we've heard about that type of battery, and or we've heard about it and I don't remember it, which could be true. So just really things that I think obviously to look at. But I mean, I can understand too, in working in healthcare and working in hospitals previously, is that, there's a lot of constraints on the ability to invest in capital infrastructure for hospitals. And usually most of that comes from the standpoint, people don't realize, like, hospitals, like, they don't normally make a lot of money. And if they make a lot of money, it's like, okay, well, we need a new scanner, we need this, there's all these pieces. Sometimes, like, new buildings that they're doing at Mass General, I think the new cardiac building that's being there is the New Balance Cardiac Center. So what happens is there's philanthropic nature of people giving back because they had a good experience, help save their life, all these things to be able to do. But yeah, so I think this is going to be something to keep an eye on in terms of big batteries in hospitals. But any thoughts on that?
Yes, I did look up. It is apparently the phonetic spelling here of that particular type of battery, vanadium.
Vanadium. Okay.
Long A, long E after the D. Yeah. Atomic number of 23, symbol V, if you care.
Interesting.
Often used to make alloy steels. No, but on the lead acid thing, I think the recycling part's important. I think the fact that it can sit around and keep its charge is another aspect.
Yeah.
I think lithium has gotten better about that, but I think there's a certain amount of, like, hey, this thing, it's not going to be used all the time, but when we use it, we want to make sure it's got the capacity we need.
Yeah.
They are heavier, but typically hospitals don't care about that.
Yeah.
They're going to be, and, sort of like energy density isn't as big of a concern, perhaps for some hospitals and space and cities and all that stuff. But I think generally speaking, that's not a major concern.
Yeah. And what I did a little bit while you were talking is to look up vanadium. Did I say that right?
I think that's right, yeah.
But yeah, Vanadium Redox Flow Batteries, or VRFBs. It's a high-capacity, long-duration, and non-flammable rechargeable storage system that stores energy in liquid vanadium electrolytes. They're designed in large-scale 4 to 12-hour applications like grid stabilization. VRFBs allow independent scaling of power, stack size, and capacity bank size, offering 20,000 plus deep discharge cycles. So here's what we've been talking to. Like, this is, I was like,
that's
wow.
a little while.
I was like, yeah. So this is interesting. I mean, we may have to revisit this type of battery in a little bit more depth in another episode, because it's like, there's got to be some constraint here why we aren't using these more. And I don't know if the constraint is, like, where does vanadium come from? Like, how do we get this? Like, we know where lithium comes from. We know all that stuff. Like, so is that a part of why? Is it more, are they, like, I don't know what the energy density compared to lithium ion compared to lead acid. That'd be a great actual follow-up for us to look at for sure, to be able to see these. But if that seems to be, I mean, it's there. But Yeah, so we'll see in
Wow.
time.
Fun fact. Wow.
Fun fact.
Cool.
Go for it. Yeah.
Long life.
Yeah.
So scalability, capacity can be increased simply by using larger tanks. Cool. They can operate for 25 plus years without significant capacity degradation, even with 100% daily discharging.
We got to look more into the. I mean, this is another episode. We got to look, but folks, thank you if you're listening. But this is how we've, people say, people ask me actually in the hospital, you get some time to be able to talk to people. It's like, oh, you have any hobbies? And I was like, yeah, battery podcast. In fact, I said, my co-host is going to be coming to see me tomorrow. But I think this is where we get this show, right? We going down and we look at something, and then it sparks some interest, and that's how the show is going for 250 plus episodes, and we're there. I'll tell you the other thing, Jeff, that is something that is close to our hearts, so to speak, if we're going to use that, is single-use batteries. So I did a little bit of research on that. So if I were to ask you, one hospital, a single large U.S. hospital, they didn't say who it was, how many single-use disposable batteries do you think they use in a year?
Well, I don't think, because I know, because we talked about it beforehand. But
we did.
It's close to 100,000.
I know, 97,000 disposable batteries. So basically, if you multiply that across the nation's 5,000 hospitals, it translates to over 4 million batteries discarded, all classified as universal waste under EPA regulations, requiring specialized handling and disposal that constrain both the budgets and environments. So, yeah, I mean, obviously Tom Bishop, Pale Blue, shout out to those guys. They're trying to solve that problem, and I should say they are solving it. I mean, I sit here all the time and recharge my Pale Blues. In fact, I feel like I need to get a couple more, because some devices have increased. Like my now I have 2 Blink cameras and things like that. Plus then I've got so I'm using my mice, and so it's like want to make sure that I'm not having to like reach into the single use pocket if possible. But it's just that's huge. That's huge. And so that might be something for a future episode to talk over. Tom is like, he has said at Pale Blue, like, you see a lot of photographers using it. You see a lot of people using it in mics, in musical, but I wonder in healthcare where that could come to into play, as we look at that. But
I mean, even like, I wonder what the variety of devices is, right? If you look at all those disposable batteries, like, are they button cells? Are they AA, AAA, 9-volt? Like, what's the mix of those? And it almost like, gosh, if we can pick one category of those and just replace them with Pale Blues, that would be a large percentage, I would think. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with you. And the article goes on to say that pervasive reliance on disposable batteries creates a cascading problem throughout the healthcare operations, which is true, because like getting them, picking it up, and they said an FDA survey reveals that up to 50% of service calls in hospitals relate directly to battery issues, a staggering statistic. And for my own personal thing, I do not think there were batteries in it. I didn't bother opening this. This wasn't the equipment. Is that I had when I was in my room, I was on EKG, but then when I would go for my walks, they would have a battery powered EKG that would kind of sit in the pocket of my Johnny coat to be able to walk around. And so, I mean, I would hope that was rechargeable. You know what I mean? And there's a station that we're just doing that one. Well, it looked like a RAV Power type of power pack size-esque. So it was there, but I mean, you had some time, didn't you? Look at it. Is there like a USB port on it? Was there like
I didn't.
A little battery door. I mean,
I'm not going to lie to you. My cognitive status was probably not significantly high. I mean, hopefully my conversation with you was like somewhat there, but it might have been very cyclical, as I felt like I was like talking about the same thing 50 million times, but that's all it was. But I mean, I think that there's a lot that can be done in terms of batteries and in healthcare. And I think the one thing for Tom is that standpoint of, is it a voltage issue? And that's as we were talking pre-show about this, is that clearly you don't want that battery to run out, right? And so how does the system say? And if you might give you an example of your mouse and how it does. Like, it doesn't show you that it's at 5% and give you that warning when you use a pale blue versus if you were using like a standard single-use battery. And that I think, to me, that may be the reason why the single uses are. But I know he was working on something. But if you want to give an example, yeah. So yeah, I think it's but they talked about a couple things that when you have I have a pulse oximeter that's small that I use at home, and that's got pale blue AAA's in there, right? And so I use it, and it's intermittent use, right? So what I mean by that is, like, I put it on, I take my measurements, see where I'm at, heart rate, pulse oximetry, and then log my value, and we're good. I think other larger aspects, that's a different story, though. And I guess to say, speaking of larger aspects, the one thing that they look at too is the standpoint that you're seeing more batteries in medical workstations. And I can say I saw that initially and the funny part is, I'm looking at this article from medtechinsights.com that says Ultralife Corporation launches the X5 SuperLite in Las Vegas. So I wonder if this is something with consumer. It was the Venetian Convention Expo Center in Las Vegas. So it's HIMSS Global Health Conference, which is Healthcare Information Management Service. Something like that. Yeah. So what I had seen a ton is that we would have, obviously, computers for doing documentation that were in the room. And then what happens is they'd be plugged in, right? But also the other part is you had like these mobile workstations that you'd be able to roll around and do certain things. And the form factor of these batteries looks exactly the same as it did 8 years ago in terms of that. But I just want to go over a little bit of this. They said at booth 3061, Ultralife will be joining Carta Healthcare, a leading manufacturer of space-saving medical carts, and two companies celebrate 4 years of partnership. So, they have these batteries that are there. What I didn't see in this article, and of course what I'm looking for, is it said when AC mains are unavailable, and Inconvenient Ultralife designs to hold up batteries for both the X6 power systems that are there. I didn't see the problem with this. I didn't see like how big these are, but they said what's interesting is they had USB A and USB C essentially outputs, and I think a lot of those monitors, when you look at them, are pretty low power. I mean, they're probably USB C that they're able to have on there, and then they're usually very light PCs, meaning like they're just in there to connect. Their sole job is basically connect to the wireless and allow you to document, right? So there's not a large need in terms of power, but it's probably just like, hey, when do you want to? And they're saying it's using only USB-C compatible laptops and tablet computers, which, I mean, look, here's our MacBooks, right? Here's MacBooks, so many of your Dells, everything else like that. Obviously, sometimes there's a proprietary adapter like a MagSafe that we have, but yeah,
that works over USB-C too.
But it's over USB-C too, so that's where I think this is super interesting. So
did you catch the other cool thing about this?
I didn't. No, you tell me.
This medical station, they have hot swappable batteries, so.
Yeah,
you just pop them out, like that's like the little handles on the top. So you don't have you don't have to shut it down, right? It's just like take.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. The form factor is different, and the form factor is not different. When you look at that form factor, I believe it was Mobius, if my memory's correct, was when we went to the mobile workstations you would use, and we had like a mobile workstation, and it had, I think it was either one or two batteries that we would use, but then we had like a thing on the wall where you had multiple ones that you could plug in, and it'd be a recharging port, for lack of a better word, that you'd kind of see, and which is not unusual to be able to do that. So so more to come on that. But last one I want to cover in this when we're looking at is, hey, for consumer wise, like, what could you be doing? Well, obviously, if you got a pulse oximeter, and I actually tell people pick them up for $10. It's a great piece of equipment to have in your own home. I tell all my patients this as well, because what it does for you, if you don't have an Apple Watch, you don't have something like this, it gives you two different variables. One is going to give you your heart rate, and some of them give you a little bit of what we call a sine wave. So you'll be able to see a little bit of what looks like somewhat of an EKG. It's usually not super because it's really isn't. But you get heart rate and you get what's called SaO2, and you see that, which is your pulse oximetry. It's an important piece because what it is like how much oxygen saturation do you have in your blood? And lower levels are obviously not good. I mean, I checked mine and they're good. I mean, they'll come up back to 100% of them just resting, or 99, 95, 96, 97, 98 in a range to be able to have. So in terms of that, super easy. You can pick yourself up some rechargeable AAA batteries. There's 2 of them in there. You're good to go. The other one, if you're looking at for a little bit more, blood pressure cuff is something else I have. So same thing, rechargeable batteries that are in that. I have yet to see many of them that are like actually power pack included, but I think there's your cost, right? It's like you don't need that much, and they're intermittent uses. Like I'm not keeping the blood pressure on 24 hours, 7 days a week, right? It's like take my measurements and have that. And then there's this interesting one that I came upon, which I had not heard of it, called Cardiomobile, and Cardiomobile is with a K, so it's Kardia mobile, and they have a 1-lead EKG, which is neat. I mean, I have to use my Apple Watch to be able to take my EKGs, and I've used that even preoperatively to be able to have. But the other thing is that they have one that is actually a 6-lead EKG, and it just describe how they actually do it, which is interesting. I went to their website to check. Essentially, if you describe it for our listeners, you're holding 2 things on a left and right on a system, and then you place the center bubble, for lack of a better word, on a different part of your body. And that different part of your body could be on your ankle, it could be on your knee, so that you're getting a little bit more of electrical activity through your body. And yet again, not, although I will say you could recharge this, because I looked it up because this is the I Like Battery show. It's like, well, what type of batteries does this use, and why would I not do that?
It's the default question of the show.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the Cardiomobile 6L uses a CR 2016 battery, which should last 1 to 2 years with normal use. You can easily replace the battery at home if needed. So we've seen these. In fact, we've actually we found some of these that you can have like almost USB-C rechargeable, like it's a little port. If you want to go rechargeable versus single use, because we're talking about like lacking single use, we'll do this. But Jeff, if I were to say a CR 2016, like how big do you think that is?
Well, we know exactly from the name. We know it's a coin cell type battery, so it's thin, and it is 20 millimeters across and 1.6 millimeters tall.
That's right. Yeah, and so it's a little bit, and that's why I want to talk about this. These are like some of these ones where it's like it's 20. When you look at it, you're thinking, it's 20 millimeters, across, and it's 16 millimeters tall. That'd be a huge battery. Yeah. No, it's one of these things. The convention kind of shifts a little bit if there's a point, because there's no way to they don't want to put the point in there. But I guess the point of all of this is, hopefully you enjoyed the show. Hopefully you had a great week. Hopefully, as I can say, you're fully charged, or in my case, I would say at least 80%.
Yeah, 80% is a good target for you right now.
Yeah, exactly. Agreed. Have a great week, folks. Take care.